Here we go. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study with paper 53. We're on page 602.1, and that's 53, section 1, paragraph 4. And we're going to redo the last paragraph we did last time so that it kind of makes sense to go on with the flow here. So I'm going to have my wife read this first paragraph. And, well, we're actually a minute early there. Should we wait another minute?
Wait a minute. Okay.
All right, that's okay. We can go ahead and get started. Why don't you go ahead and turn your mic on? I'll turn mine on.
Very little was heard of Lucifer on Urantia, owing to the fact that he assigned his first lieutenant, Satan, to advocate his cause on your planet. Satan was a member of the same primary group of Lanondex, but had never functioned as a system sovereign. He entered fully into the Lucifer insurrection. The devil is none other than Caligastia, the deposed planetary prince of Urantia and a son of the secondary orders of Lanondex. At the time Michael was on Urantia in the flesh, Lucifer, Satan, and Caligastia were leagued together to effect the miscarriage of his bestowal mission, but they signally failed.
Okay, the important part of this is that they tried to affect the miscarriage of the bestowal mission, and if they were successful in doing that, then Michael would not have earned his sovereignty of his local universe, which is
just goes to show how little they knew or respected,
really, more than anything else, And of course, we were introduced to all these other people like Lucifer, Satan, and Caligastia in the last meeting. And if any of y'all are just joining us for this meeting, I suggest you listen to the first one after we do this tonight, so that you kind of up to the date what we were talking about, because I don't want to have to go all through everything again. But Caligastia, this is important. He's known as the devil. A lot of time Beelzebub was thought to be the devil, but he really was not. He was the head of the rebel midwayers, and the rebel midwayers head was called Beelzebub, and he's the one that caused most of the problems on our planet, having appeared. They would appear in front of these Bedouins and things and scare them half to death and that sort of thing, and that's where we got the concept of devils and demons and things like that. But the devil was actually our planetary prince, Prince Caligastia. But both Lucifer, Satan, and Caligastia all got together. I don't know if y'all remember from the story on Mount Hermon and that sort of thing, when they tempted Jesus. They really wanted to depose the whole bestowal mission that Jesus was on, and which did not work. Thank goodness it did not work. It helps us for sure. Now, after this one is a picture of Satan, Lucifer, and Caligastia and the order of sonship they were. Two of them primary, Lanondex, and the other secondary. So you can look at that at your leisure. Let's go on to the next.
Roger?
Yeah.
Something I think that's interesting is that Jesus or Michael asked the Father if he can meet with these rebels as a mortal.
Yeah, that really is interesting. Let me turn up my sound just a little bit. I'm having a little bit trouble hearing y'all. Let me do
So
that.
To me, it pretty much put them in their place.
He did, and he asked to meet them as a mortal, not as the creator's son, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. As the creator's son, he still had power as a creator son, but he wanted to meet him as mortal to demonstrate to us that even as mortals, we can resist all the temptation of all these beings who are higher sons of God, right? So if Jesus could resist all their offers, we can do that in our life as well, and we can do that because we have the
Correct.
Spirit of God within us, right?
Yep.
All right, let's go on to the next one here. Well, my screen's all mixed up here, isn't it? I'll tell you what, let's take it from where it is on my screen so that I can keep track of where everybody got. Pam, would you take the next one?
Abaddon was the chief of the staff of Caligastia. He followed his master into rebellion and has ever since acted as chief executive of the Urantia rebels. Be- Beelzebus, Beelzebus,
There you go.
Beelzebub
Yep.
was the
Beelzebub.
leader of the disloyal Midway creatures who allied themselves with the forces of the traitorous Caligastia.
Okay, so we need to know who these people are to kind of put them in who they are in their place. Abaddon was one of the Caligastia 100 that came from Jerusalem, from Urantia, in Jerusalem, for the as the Caligastia 100. So Abaddon was actually came down with the 100 and was the chief of Caligastia's rebels. Okay, of that group. Now Beelzebub, who was a midwayer, he was a primary midwayer, not a secondary midwayer. Beelzebub was a primary midwayer, and the primary midwayers came about during the time of the 100. Okay, the secondary midwayers, who also rebelled, were the time during the time in Adam and Eve. So it's kind of interesting that so many of the primary and so many of the secondary midwayers rebelled, especially the primary. We're talking 40,000 beings.
Yeah.
That's a lot of beings.
Mm.
And these are the ones that created all the problems with appearing before the Bedouins and things like that and scaring them half to death. And that's where all the legends of the devils and demons came from, is during this period of time. Now, remember, Beelzebub started out 200,000 years ago. The secondary midwayers were only 38,000 years ago. Okay, so after Jesus finished his bestowal and all the primary and secondary that rebelled were taken away in chains, then the secondary midwayers and the primary midwayers that remained, there was about 10,000, 10,000 primary and about 800 secondary, if I remember correctly. It could have been 1,200, but I think it's 800. But they joined together as the United Midwayers of Urantia after the resurrection, and they are the ones that suggested to Jesus that he bring our revelation to us. Okay, they wanted to do this back in the 1300s, but the Ancients of Days felt it was too soon, but they did get approval back in 1934 to do it. Okay, on the petition of Jesus to the Ancients of Days. Okay, so that's how it came down. All right, let's go. Rearrange my screen again. Gary, would you take the next one?
Roger,
Yeah,
excuse me. Did you say Beelzebub was a primary or
he was a
Primary.
he was a primary midwayer.
primary?
Yes. Okay. Which is interesting because it was harder for the primary midwayers to make themselves visible and move things. But y'all have to remember, some of the mechanical controllers on the planet went into rebellion too, so they could join up with one of the physical controllers and move things around easily. Okay, that's how they were able to move things around. Now the secondary midwayers can move things around on their own. All right, but the primary could not. They had to have help to do it. So that's the way they did that. All right. Okay, Gary, would you take the next one?
Okay, the dragon eventually became the symbolic representation of all this evil personages. Upon the triumph of Michael, Gabriel came down from Salvington and bound the dragon, all the rebel leaders, for an age. Of the Jerusalem seraphic rebels, it is written, and the angels who kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in such chains of darkness to the judgment of the great day.
Okay, and this is really important that we understand this. Salvington is our capital, our local universe capital, right? And so after Pentecost, uh, Gabriel and the loyal seraphic host, probably with the archangels, came and took all the seraphic rebels, that included all of them on the planets and everywhere else, and took them away in chains and put them in the prison worlds of the Father. Okay, and they stay there waiting for judgment of the Ancients of Days. Two things. One thing I missed last week, I failed to mention. You know, when we were talking about the quarantine of the 37 planets, remember when I was talking about that? How
Yes.
soon as the rebellion broke out and the 37 planets that followed were put in quarantine immediately. Okay. Not only that, I failed to mention that Jerusalem itself, the Satania itself, was put in quarantine as the system.
Ooh.
Okay. And this is really important that we know this, because as a system quarantine, that means all the other planets, all 607 planets. Remember back then there were 607 planets. We are 606. It wasn't, yeah. By 1934, there's 619 now. But only 37 of them rebelled. But because of the system rebellion, it threw all the planets into temporary quarantine. Okay. So that means our entire system was under quarantine. And can y'all imagine why they did that? But
To keep us from going into.
to keep us for other systems to follow us into rebellion.
Yeah.
Okay. And that probably stayed the case until Lucifer was replaced by Lanaforge and the 7 staff members that came with him. Okay. So I am assuming that, you know, I get in trouble doing this sometimes, but I am assuming when Lanaforge came and took the head of the system back over, that probably the system quarantine was more than likely ended for the other planets that stayed loyal. And probably only the planets that rebelled stayed in quarantine at that time, more than likely. Does that make sense?
Oh, thank you.
So,
Roger, also, maybe it was to make sure that they caught them all.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's hard for us to even imagine 700,000 of one type of being that had to take away to the Father's worlds, right? That doesn't include, that's just one type of being, the land of non-dex. Then you have all the angels that rebelled, the cherubim that rebelled, all the other beings that rebelled along with mortals. There's probably billions of beings waiting on the Father's prison worlds. Now,
Very sad.
yeah, it is very sad. You wonder why it's taken so long to settle everything. Well, think of it this way. The universe keeps going, even though this happens. Okay. So the Ancients of Days not only has to decide on each and every person that dies, whether they go on to the mansion worlds, don't they? So, you know, as all these humans are dying on all these different planets, they have to make these decisions. Along with that, they have to adjudicate all these hundreds of thousands of beings that rebelled. So you can see why this process may take 1,000,000 years, 10 million years. We don't know, you know. So we're not going to be out of quarantine for quite some time, probably not in our lifetime. Anyway.
Now, that last sentence there, isn't that from the book of Jude?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yes, it is. So that kind of gives you the picture, you know, it just wasn't the planets that rebelled, but it affected the whole universe. And saying that, you can see the difficulty in understanding how a rebellion not only affects those who rebel, but it affects everyone in the local universe, right? If you think about it, you know, there's no way around it. That's why they say in the book, when one part of a family is in default, it affects the whole family.
Oh, family.
Yes, it does. So we have to kind of bear with our brothers and sisters who rebels. Okay, let me hang on, y'all. Let me go back one. I did want to mention this. The dragon up here it talks about became the symbol of the rebellion. Okay, so back during that time.
How do you think that came about?
Well, it was probably during the time right after the rebellion started. The barbarians and things like that, they were tattooing each other back then. So what they did was they got the dragon tattoos to show that they were part of the rebellion. You know, and that goes.
But how did they? I wonder how they picked the dragon.
Who knows? They don't tell us that.
I wonder how.
My guess is it was just a sign of along the line of the devils and demons. That's the thing I keep thinking. You know, what was you going to ask, Gary?
Wonder if that has anything to do with why the dragon is so prominent in Chinese culture.
Chinese culture.
It is, and I would say it's probably an offshoot of that. But I'm sure that the Chinese culture has no idea that the dragon was the representation of the Lucifer rebellion.
Right.
They wouldn't use it, right? And they still use it today. You know, I mean, when they have their festivals, New Year, all these things, the dragon's right there. You know. So it's kind of interesting, but I did want to point that out. You know, that's the danger too of, you know, y'all know how I feel about tattooing, but you know, it's a tribal mark, and it says in the book it's a tribal mark. And plus the fact that you're tattooing the temple of God.
Mm-hmm.
What is the temple of God? Your body, right? So I'd be careful about what I'd be writing on my temple, right? So anyway, okay, the cause of rebellion. I'm sure I'll get hate mail from that, right? As usual. Okay, who was up next? Did you just read, Gary?
Gary did.
Yeah, you did. Okay, Jane, would you take the next one?
Okay. 2. The causes of rebellion. Lucifer and his first assistant, Satan, had reigned on Jerusalem for more than 500,000 years, when in their hearts they began to array themselves against the universal Father and his then vicegerent son, Michael.
Okay, so back then, you know, 500,000 years ago, Michael was just the vicegerent ruler of his local universe in the name of the Father, right? He hadn't earned his own sovereignty yet. Okay, so that's what they're talking about here. All right.
Yeah.
Let's keep going here. Let me switch out down here so I can keep up. Okay, let's see. Rodney, you're up next.
Yes. There were no peculiar or special conditions in the system of Satania which suggested or favored rebellion. It is our belief that the idea took origin and form in Lucifer's mind, and that he might have instigated such a rebellion no matter where he might have been stationed. Lucifer first announced his plans to Satan, but it required several months to corrupt the mind of his able and brilliant associate. However, when once converted to the rebel theories, he became a bold and earnest advocate of self-assertion and liberty.
I told him not to let those tribbles in there.
Yep.
Tribbles are always trouble. I'm joking. Star Trek can't get away from it.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay. So they said that there's nothing in particular in Satania that made it that they would have any idea that Lucifer would rebel. So things were just kind of going on the way they should. And then when Lucifer got this concept in his mind, it took a few months for him to convert Satan. But when he did convert Satan, then he went whole hog with it. Okay. So Satan started to go around to the 37 planets, talking them into the idea of rebellion. All right.
I wonder if that wouldn't have been observed as being unusual.
Well,
Someone visiting.
Well, they had two previous rebellions in Nevada, right? So they had the records of what happened in the two previous rebellions, but the problem was that this rebellion was bigger than both of them put together. So it was pretty bad.
So,
right?
Roger,
Yeah.
speaking of the two previous rebellions, Michael was not yet sovereign,
No.
so surely they must have captured them and taken them to the same prison world.
Maybe so. I don't know if it would be the same prison worlds,
Well,
Rodney, because
Yeah, different systems.
each system would have their mansion worlds, and they probably each have the father's worlds on each one,
Yeah,
and so theirs would be on their planet. So,
correct.
right? Okay, let's go on to the next one. William, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. No one ever suggested rebellion to Lucifer. The idea of self assertion is opposition to the will of Michael and to the plans of the Universal Father, as they were represented in Michael, had its origin in his own mind. His relations with the Creator's Son have been intimate and always cordial. At no time prior to the exhortation of his own mind did Lucifer openly express dissatisfaction about the universal administration. Notwithstanding his silence, for more than 100 years of standard time, the union of days on Salvington had been reflectivating to Uversa that all was not at peace in Lucifer's mind. This information was also communicated to the Creator's Son and the constellation fathers of, how do you say that one?
Norlashadek.
Norlashadek, okay.
Right. So everything seemed to be going along fine, but Uversa, which is where the ancient days stay, they had been reflecting the fact that nothing was quite right with Lucifer's mind. He was coming up with these concepts. So, and this information was relayed to the Verandadek sons, the constellation fathers, of Norlashadek, so that they could counsel Lucifer on what was going on. And apparently that's what they did, is they counseled him about they were concerned about these ideas he was coming up with. So, and this is a picture of the planets in Jerusalem, that sort of thing. You can look at that later if you want to.
Mhm.
All right. Diane, you're next.
Throughout this period, Lucifer became increasingly critical of the entire plan of universe administration, but always professed wholehearted loyalty to the supreme rulers. Excuse me. His first outspoken disloyalty was manifested on the occasion of a visit to Gabriel to Jerusalem, just a few days before the open proclamation of the Lucifer Declaration of Liberty. Gabriel was so profoundly impressed with the certainty of the impending outbreak that he went direct to Adentia to confer with the Constellation Fathers regarding the measures to be employed in case of open rebellion.
Okay, so this visit from Gabriel, as soon as he talked to Lucifer, he realized things were not well and something was going to happen. So he immediately went to Adentia, to the Constellation Fathers, the headquarters of Constellation, and told them what needed to be done if rebellion becomes open, and that's exactly what happened. So he was right with that. Okay, Pam, would you take the next one?
Yes. It is very difficult to point out the exact cause of causes, which finally culminated in the Lucifer Rebellion. We are certain of only one thing, and that is, whatever these first beings were, they had their origin in Lucifer's mind. There must have been a pride of self that nourished itself to the point of self-deception, so that Lucifer, for a time, really persuaded himself that his contemplation of rebellion was actually for the good of the system, if not of the universe. By the time his plans had developed to the point of disillusionment, no doubt he had gone too far for his original and mischief-making pride to permit him to stop. At some point in this experience, he became insincere, and evil evolved into deliberate and willful sin. That this happened is proved by the subsequent conduct of this brilliant executive. He was long offered opportunity for repentance, but only some of his subordinates ever accepted the proffered mercy. The faithful of days of Adentia, on the request of the Constellation Fathers, in person presented the plan of Michael for the saving of these fragment rebels, but always was the mercy of the Creator Son rejected, and rejected with increasing contempt and disdain.
Okay, several points in this. First of all, this is cosmic insanity. How is it cosmic insanity? When you start to embrace sin and evil and going against the willful order of the universe, what happens is you become disillusioned with reality, and reality turns into fantasy. And this happened with Lucifer, and this happened because of his own self-contemplation. That's why they tell us in the book it's not good for people to be by themselves all the time, right? We need each other to, throw ideas off of each other and to live together and that sort of thing, so that we have someone that we can relate things to, so we don't get off on this evil and sin, which brings us into the cosmic insanity. And once Lucifer got to a certain point, he couldn't go back any longer, could he?
Right.
So he just kept going because he realized by the time he realized what he had done, it was too late. Okay. He knew he could never go back to the way it was. So he just kept going on farther, and it made it worse and worse and worse. And it's the same way with us. If we start embracing evil and sin, or we go against what we know is right, we eventually step into the aspect of iniquity. Okay. And the iniquity going against God the Father, that leads you to cosmic insanity. And when you get to that point, the chances are of you rehabilitating and repenting of what you've done is very small. Right?
Roger.
Yeah.
It's like stepping into quicksand.
Yeah. You just keep sinking. Right.
The more you fight, the further down
you get. Yep. The more you sink. All right. And that's very important to understand this. So if you think about it, Lucifer's reaction is almost a human reaction, isn't it? Instead of a reaction of a Lananandek son who was supposed to be a leader of beings. Okay. So he downstepped himself in essence, what he's done. That's willful and deliberate sin. Now, this is his statement of his sin, the Lucifer Manifesto. Gary, would you take the first paragraph there?
Okay. 3, the Lucifer Manifesto. Whatever the early origins of trouble in the hearts of Lucifer and Satan, the final outbreak took form as the Lucifer Declaration of Liberty. The cause of the rebels was stated under 3 headings.
Okay, you could call this the declaration of the Lucifer Declaration of Insanity. That's what it is, right? Because this is his steps to his cosmic insanity. All right, and Lucifer and both embrace this. Okay, Lucifer and Satan both. Okay, there's 3 sections to this. Jane, would you take the first one there?
Okay. Maybe a bit small. The reality of the universal Father. Lucifer charged that the universal Father did not really exist, that physical gravity and space energy were inherent in the universe, and that the Father was a myth invented by the Paradise Sons to enable them to maintain the rule of the universes in the Father's name. He denied that personality was a gift of the Universal Father. He even intimated that the finaliters were in collusion with the Paradise Sons to foist fraud upon all creation, since they never brought back a very clear-cut idea of the Father's actual personality as it is discernible on Paradise. He traded on reverence as ignorance. The charge was sweeping, terrible, and blasphemous. It was this veiled attack upon the finaliters that no doubt influenced the ascendant citizens then on Jerusalem to stand firm and remain steadfast in resistance to all the rebels' proposals.
And not a single one of them were lost. No one followed the Lucifer's leading. Okay, let's think about this first. He stated that the universal Father didn't exist. Now, he agreed that there were all these paradise sons of God, right? Are y'all with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
How can you have sons when you don't have a father or a mother or a mother, right? We know that God the Father was the father of all these beings, and God the Son was the mother of all the paradise creator sons, right? And God the Son was the father of all the magisterial sons, and God the Spirit was the mother of all the magisterial sons. And God the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit were all three creator inheritances of the Trinity teacher sons, right? Now, if these beings didn't exist, how did these other beings come into existence? Right? Now, if there was no Father, how did paradise get there? And if he agreed that there was a paradise, what would be the purpose of paradise and what kept paradise going if there weren't any Trinity? Does that make sense? You see why I keep calling this cosmic insanity? None of it makes any sense. Now, let's talk about the finaliters. The finaliters are all these hundreds of millions of beings that started out as mortals and climbed their self all the way to paradise. They had been there. They had stood before God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit. They had been to paradise. They had been at the location. They had interacted with all three of the Trinity personalities and came back, and he discounted that any of these millions of finaliters ever went anywhere. Okay. Now, does any of this make any sense?
Roger,
Yeah.
Lucifer had never left this
Satania.
universe.
Yeah, well, the local universe, right. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he didn't know paradise existed.
No, as far as him, it was just a
Even though he
concept.
called them
Yeah.
paradise sons
Yeah.
and paradise, he thought it was just fake, I guess.
Well, and he, as I don't know if y'all remember, but last week we were talking about this liberty he wanted. And Jesus had told him all these things that he was asking for, he already had. And the other things, like going to paradise, he would be granted in the future. Right? Excuse me, y'all. So
But he didn't want to go along with the program.
He didn't want to go along with the program.
Basically, yeah.
He thought his way was better than everybody else's way, the way of the creator sons. All right. Let's go to the second one. Rodney, would you take number 2?
Yes, 2. The universe government of the creator's son, Michael. Lucifer contended that the local systems should be autonomous. Did I say that right?
Autonomous, that's right.
Autonomous. Yeah. He protested against the right of Michael, the creator's son, to assume sovereignty of Nebadon in the name of a hypothetical paradise father, and required all personalities to acknowledge allegiance to the unseen father. He asserted that the whole plan of worship was a clever scheme to aggrandize the paradise sons. He was willing to acknowledge Michael as his creator father, but not as his God and rightful ruler.
Now, does that make any sense? He acknowledged Christ as creator, but didn't acknowledge Christ as his God.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all, does it? It's like, that's what I'm talking about. He went cosmically insane. His logical functioning stopped functioning. Okay, because none of this stuff makes any logic whatsoever. All right, and the other son, he always comes back to the creator son. Son means that you have to have a father. You can't have a son without having a father. Okay, that's just the way it is. And the father of all is God, the father of all creatures. Okay. So saying that there is no father, that means that all the creatures just appeared out of nothingness.
Yes, that does make sense
Yeah.
because God did it.
Yeah, God did it. That's right.
So he did create it out of nothingness because God can do that.
God can do that. Only God can do that, right?
Yeah,
Only deity.
that's the
Yeah,
problem with the logic he's putting forth.
that's right.
It can't
That's right.
happen without God.
You can't, none of it can happen. You can't do anything unless you always come back to the first source and center. Even stupid humans know that. Okay. You'd think that he'd be above such stupidity, but he wasn't. Okay. William, he's gone to sleep on us, didn't he? You've been traveling all night.
It happens.
Yes. Bill, you awake? No, he's gone to sleep. Diane, will you want to take the next one?
Most bitterly did he attack the right of the ancients of days, foreign potentates, to interfere in the affairs of the local systems and universes. These rulers he denounced as tyrants and usurpers. He exhorted his followers to believe that none of these rulers could do aught to interfere with the operation of complete home rule if men and angels only had the courage to assert themselves and boldly claim their rights.
Okay, so I said the ancients of days were foreign potentates, foreign people that's interfering with the affairs of all the universe. Okay. And that if all the beings stood together, that they wouldn't be taken off by the angels. Who are we talking about there? We're talking about archangels. Are we not the most powerful angels in the universe? All right. So if they can come and take you away individually, you think a group of beings going to keep them from doing their job? I don't think so. Right?
Roger, this right here sounds more or less like a lie.
Yeah.
Like he knew
He knew. Yeah. He had to have known the difference. He saw this happen over and over and over again. Not the fact that when people die and you don't make the grade, in other words, you don't accept God, and when you die and they do your adjudication and you don't wake up on the mansion worlds, that's not what happens when these archangels come and get these beings. What he's talking about are Urantia and celestial beings that have rebelled or misbehaved, and the ancients of days can come and pick them up and take them before the ancients of days. Okay?
No, wait.
That does not happen to us.
Of days could pick them up?
Huh? The archangels.
Yeah, the archangels.
Yeah, the archangels can come and get them and make them appear before the ancients of days. That's why he called them foreign potentates, because they had executioners that could either come out and pick them up and make you appear before the ancients of days, or they can go out and get the person and remove the life force from them right then, right there.
He was jealous of their powers.
He was jealous of their powers. And there were only the ancients of days that could do that. That's the whole point here. Okay, so that's why he called them foreign potentates. And what he kept telling people is if they stood up against them, they wouldn't be able to do that. Poppycock. These are powerful beings. You can't keep them from doing their job, right? That's just all there is to it.
A lie.
So, another lie, and this is what happens when you entertain sin. That's right. Pam, would you take the next one?
He contended that the executioners of the ancients of days could be debarred from functioning in the local systems if the native beings would only assert their independence. He maintained that immortality was inherent in the system personalities, that resurrection was natural and automatic, and that all beings would live eternally except for the arbitrary and unjust acts of the executioners of the Ancients of Days.
Okay, so let me give you advice here. You can live in sin your whole life. You can not love anyone. You can take advantage of other people. You can be the worst sort of human being you want to be. And you can claim this paragraph as he says, but do you think you're going to wake up on the mansion worlds? Yeah. I don't think so. You going to take that chance?
Yeah, but
No.
well, wait a minute. You don't have to worry about that because he says that the resurrection was natural and automatic and that all beings would live eternally.
Except for what?
Except for arbitrary and unjust acts of the executioners of the Ancients of Days. Okay.
So do you have any say in that?
That's
So
true.
the Ancients of Days would have just says you all, and
Yeah.
I know he was a Southerner, you
Yeah.
know, and you're gone.
Okay, so you're gonna take a chance of, you won't even know that you didn't wake up. I am not gonna take that chance. I can tell you that. I'd like to keep going. You know, so this is more of the cosmic insanity. Okay, there's more. Okay, let's see who's next. Did you just read, Gary?
No, I
No?
didn't. That was just
Okay, you
running
want
my
to read?
mouth.
You would you
I-
want to read? You want to read this one?
Okay, I'll take it. 3. The attack upon the universal plan of ascendant mortal training. Lucifer maintained that so far too much time and energies was expended upon the scheme of so thoroughly training ascending mortals in the principles of universe administration, principles which he alleged were unethical and unsound. He protested against the age-long program for preparing the mortals of space for some unknown destiny and pointed to the presence of the finaliter cores on Jerusalem as proof of that these mortals had spent ages of preparation for some destiny of pure fiction. With derision, he pointed out that the finaliters had encountered a destiny no more glorious than to be returned to humble spheres similar to those of their origin. He intimated that they had been debauched by overmuch discipline and prolonged training, and that they were in reality traitors to their mortal fellows, since they were now cooperating with the scheme of enslaving all creatures to the fiction
Creation, all creation.
of all creation, to the fiction of a mythical eternal destiny for ascending mortals. He associated that
Advocated.
he advocated that ascenders should enjoy the liberty of individual self-determination. He challenged and condemned the entire plan of mortal ascension as sponsored by the Paradise Sons of God and supported by the Infinite Spirit.
So he's saying that the whole plan of us reaching light and life, going out into the outer space levels, the plan of the Supreme, the development of the Supreme Being, the whole plan from beginning and end was a big fantasy.
Sounds
Okay.
like another lie to me.
Yeah.
Like he knew it was true, but
You see
He won't
why I
follow
call it cosmic insanity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
really was.
Now that you understand how the universe works,
He was
you s-
denying God.
he was denying God.
Yeah.
You see how the importance of not just reading this book, but understanding the concepts of what they want us to learn so we're prepared for the mansion worlds.
Definitely.
Does that make sense?
You know, even if,
Roger,
Yes.
even if he was true,
Yeah.
okay, if I get to God and he says, I need you to go shovel horse manure
Yeah.
in the barn, I would be happy.
Well, they're heavenly horses. They probably don't have any manure.
Mm.
Well, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
I mean,
know what you're saying.
if I got there,
Yeah.
I would, obviously I'd be so, by you attain that, you're just, it's beyond the description to me right now. If
Yeah.
God told me to do that, I wouldn't have a problem.
Well, the other thing in this paragraph, he's talking that everyone should have their own self-determination. That would mean that we would have a universe, a super universe of chaos.
It would all be chaos.
It would
And
all be
we'd all be bosses.
Yeah, that's right. Jane, did you have a question there?
yes, I did. Very early on in the study, Roger, when he said, of course, denying the universal father, and was that word space energy?
Uh-huh. Energy, the
Uh-huh.
energy control plan. In other words, he was
Right.
denying that the infinite spirit
Correct.
controlled all the circuits,
So
basically.
that's why here at the end he points out that it was all supported by the infinite spirit. This
Right.
is where he wraps it up. But this illusion of his, I'm thinking, and tell me if it is so, in his feeble and delusional mind, he thought that it's inherent in the universe, this power
That's
that
right.
keeps perfection in line and perfection flowing through everything and everyone. But like you said, there is no paradise without a father. There is no son without a father.
Mm-hmm.
Neither is there any action without the spirit, the
infinite
conjoint
spirit. Yeah.
actor.
Yeah.
So really, he didn't believe that. Like he
No.
thought
Everything
he's
was
doing it on
automatic. To
his
him,
own,
everything was
automatic.
automatic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know differently from
We
the
know
study.
differently. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, see, now you guys are beginning to really understand the importance of a concept of everything that we've learned, right? Because it's all interrelated. It's interconnected. You can't have one without the other. And I know sometimes I beat some of the stuff to get death, like the seven absolutes and things like that. But by understanding these, you can get a whole picture of the cosmos, right? And unless you learn it, you can't develop your own picture. It's like trying to paint a picture without any paint. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Roger,
Yeah.
but to me, it sounds, I mean, we've been told that Lucifer was brilliant.
Before he did
And
this. Yeah. Before he
because
did
he
this,
was
right?
so
Yeah.
brilliant, to me, I think that he knew the truth, but this is just a lie,
Yeah.
so that people would follow him.
That's right. Sooner or later, he must have understood his own cosmic insanity. And by the time he figured that out, it was too late, right? He couldn't go back because there was nothing to go back to, because we know when you default against your trust, you are never given that trust again. So if he admitted he was wrong, he would lose his system, number one, and he would never be a system sovereign ever again, right?
But also the idea of power was
Yeah.
the paramount.
Power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like our own political stuff today. You know?
Exactly.
You know,
Forever.
Forever. Yes. Yeah.
I've been
So he was a
gone through
Democrat.
this, and I didn't want to say it, but this does remind me of what we're going through in the United States. Not, I don't want to mess with Jane,
Yeah.
and not Canada. I'm
Yeah.
referring to.
Well, the difference is, Gary, that people understand what they're doing. You know, you can vote for anybody you want, but you need to understand the results of what your actions are. And that's why we're called a free country, right? You are
Yeah, but here's
free
the deal.
to make the decisions yourself, right?
Here's the deal. I have been interviewing a few people, and they have convinced me they don't understand the consequences of what they're doing. And
That's
that to
true.
me is frightening, but
And
that's not for now.
yeah, that's right. That's why we need to understand the book, right? If we understand the concepts, you can argue with me all day long. You know, if you
Mhm.
understand the concepts, you can prove me wrong. But if you don't understand the concepts, you don't have a logical leg to stand on, do you? Right? All right. Let's get this next paragraph down here. We're going to get a little bit of a section down here. Jane, did you just read?
No.
You want to take this one, dear?
And it was with such a declaration, liberty, that Lucifer launched his orgy of darkness and death.
Okay, so this is what started the whole thing, is this Lucifer manifesto. Okay. And what's in it is it's not only full of lies, but it's a deceitful way to pull the wool over thousands and thousands and thousands of beings' eyes, right? Because it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay,
But
and
it's to separate people from their God.
that's right. It separates people from God. That's exactly what it does. All right. And then the next time we'll start the outbreak of rebellion, because I don't want to get into this with only 4 minutes left. So let's do this. Let's do our prayer of acceptance. And I did start a couple minutes early, so we're actually probably right on time at this point. So let's see here. Let me stop the share and bring the other one up. Okay. And who's not had a chance to read the prayer yet? Pam, would you like to read it tonight?
Sure.
Okay.
I believe that God is my paradise Father, and that only by faith am I saved. No sacrifice is necessary. By the same faith, I become a child of God, and that all men and women are my brothers and sisters. We know the Son of God as the sovereign of our universe of Nebadon, as Christ, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. By allowing the will of the Paradise Father to become my will, I will someday stand in the presence of God in the name of Christ, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
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 Okay. Heavy duty stuff, huh, y'all?
Ah,
Yeah.
Just as a side note,
Yeah.
I presented this prayer of acceptance to another study group.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'll meet them Sunday more than likely, but the one person basically the lead guy, uh, got it, and he thinks it's great. So,
good.
Good.
this
Good.
thing may start to expand.
Spread a little bit. That's right. That's why we did it, right? So people know how to reach out and find God. Really. That's
Mhm.
it. That's what it's all about. All right, y'all. Well, I enjoyed it. Remember, Thursday we'll be going back to our study of the universe. So glad y'all came. Did y'all have a good time tonight again?
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you,
Mhm.
Roger.
You're welcome.
You do pretty well, but next time I like to have some wine.
Okay. I'm trying to whine it a little bit while I'm talking, okay? Okay, y'all. Listen, we'll see you next time. Have a good night. Love you guys. See you later,
Good night.
alligators.
Good
That's
night.
all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, William.